Can you quiet your baby, please? Jeez.
I think she wants a boob.
Okay, well, we don't do boobs on screen here. I'm just kidding. You can totally do that if you want to. Whatever. Hi, Lisa Mack here. Today on DSLR Mom, I have my friends with me. These are my lovely friends. That's Ashley, Elise, and Janie.
And May.
And May. That's baby May. Sorry, I forgot. This week we're in California. We came on a trip with the crew Barbell Shrugged. They have an internet show, and we are here along to support the guys, and we decided to shoot here with the girls. And they're going to ask me some questions about photography and some struggles that they have with whether it's shooting pictures with their iPhone or with their DSLR, or just how to get cooler, artsier pictures. So I thought it'd be fun to have them on and let them talk and ask questions, and hopefully you at home will learn some things too. So, Janie,
yes.
This is one of my dearest friends, Janie. I've taken photos of her sweet kids. She's got an older one named Max, and she also has a DSLR. So, do you have any questions, or do you ever have struggles with taking photos?
I have trouble taking artsy photos. I feel like every photo I take is them posing and smiling, or maybe they're doing something slightly candid, but it's still very just like in the middle of the picture, and there's not a whole lot going on. It's just, you know, capturing the kid, which is the great part, but I want it to look a little more interesting, so I have trouble with that.
I totally understand. That's actually really hard with kids to get artsy photos, because they don't sit still.
Yeah.
What I tend to always do is to capture them in the middle of something. Mm-hmm. You know, if they're running around doing cool things, or if they're, you know, I know one of the coolest pictures I got of Max was him playing with a dandelion, 2 years old.
Yeah.
One thing to always remember is a way to get an artsy shot is to kind of have something off center a little bit. Some of the coolest, artsiest photos that you see are not something perfectly centered in the middle of a photograph. You want to leave a lot of negative space. That can make a really cool artsy shot. Mm-hmm. So if you've got, you know, your kids playing, they look really sweet just kind of sitting here playing with toys. Maybe you want, say here's your frame, this is your rectangle. Mm-hmm. Instead of having them sitting there in the middle, you may want to have them either off to this side or off to this side, because it makes a more interesting shot. Mm-hmm. That's something to always remember. And just to catch them in the middle of something. And don't ever stop snapping pictures. You know, if you've been around me, you know that I'm like,
because you never know.
You never know what's going to turn out cool. In fact, there's been times where I didn't think something was going to turn out cool, but just because I was snapping, I look at the lineup and there's a cool one in there.
Okay.
So just don't ever stop taking pictures. So anyway, what about you, Ash? You got any questions or any struggles that?
Well, actually, yeah. I don't have kids, and I don't have a fancy camera. I just have an iPhone, but I do have a blog. And I guess my question is, how would you, I mean, if you're wanting to promote a blog or something specific, like how do you know what types of pictures to capture, and like how to make it to where that certain picture can promote and show off your blog or your purpose of that day?
That's actually a really great question. I know most moms are blogging, or women, really, this day and age, everybody has a blog. And I know a lot of you out there probably have a blog. I have a blog, obviously. And Ashley has a great blog. Hers is more talking about her life, and kind of, she's living in an RV now with her husband. They don't have kids yet, but that's something that will come.
Might change.
For me, I know that I've done a lot of, I've learned a lot about blogging and the things. In fact, a lot of the research I've done talks about not only having smiling pictures. I think actually Chris, who's filming right now, was one of the ones who helped teach me what pops and what doesn't pop as far as blogging goes. And you know, photos with smiles are really, eyes are drawn to that. Bright colors, and especially, you know, stuff with a lot of contrast. I don't know if you know what contrast is, but you have photos that are very flat and boring. But if you have a photo with a lot of brights and darks, that means it has a lot of contrast. You don't want too much, but I don't know if I'm making sense right now, but if you have a lot of darks and a lot of lights in a photo, then it pops off a page more. And you can actually adjust your contrast in your iPhone, or if you have iPhoto, or if you've got any kind of easy access photo editing software. You can adjust your brightness and contrast. And if you're not sure how to do it, just pop over to some professional photography websites and start looking at how they do it. Or you can head on over to mine and look at some of mine. But a high contrast image, not too high contrast, but something with bright colors and a good amount of contrast, that helps pop off the page. Does that help answer a little bit? That's cool. Elise!
That comes to my question. So say everyone has an Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And you can go in there, you'll take a picture, and you can do your little edit button. But there's like contrast and brightness and saturation. I have no idea what any of that means. I just kind of move the little slide thing until I think it looks good. But that's the only way like I can even make a picture creative, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't really know what they mean or what they do or anything like that.
That's perfect. Good question. Actually, I often forget sometimes that like terms like contrast, saturation, all of that stuff, those are things that a lot of people may never have actually understood or learned what they mean. And now all the photo editing software and your phones, everything like that, all of it has that on there, but if you don't even know what any of that is, then it doesn't do you any good.
Right.
So saturation is color. Okay. So if something is more saturated, you're adding color. If something's less saturated, you're taking away color. So if you slide your saturation all the way to the so you've got the left side, which is your minus sign, your plus side.
Yeah.
That's more saturation. This is less saturation. If you slide it all the way this way, you're going to have a black and white photo. Then you slide it all the way that way, you're going to have the crazy, like, red-looking photo.
Right.
So, you kind of want to find a happy medium. I don't mess with my saturation too much if there's skin tones involved. If you have a person and you slide that saturation this way, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with really bright red skin, and that isn't attractive.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So I typically stay away from saturation photos when overly saturating my photos when I have people in them. But if you've got cool shots of food or vacation photos or like really bright colors, sliding your saturation over can really actually help make it pop. Contrast is actually lights and darks. So if you slide your contrast over to the plus side, you're going to end up with a lot of blacks and a lot of whites, and it can look totally crazy. So you don't want it too much, but if you slide it to the minus sign, then you're going to end up with a really flat image. It takes away a lot of the brights and darks, and it's going to be super boring. So you want to find a happy medium. If you're looking at your photo and you're like, it's not popping at you,
Right.
It's kind of flat and boring looking, then you may want to play with your contrast. You might want to bump it up a little bit. If it's a little too dark and crazy, then you may want to slide it back the other way to tone it down a little bit. There's also warmth and coolness in an image. I don't know, I've been seeing that a lot lately, how you can adjust the warmth or the coolness of an image. When you have a very shadowy image, it's usually a cool color, and it doesn't really look very inviting. So a way to fix that is to warm it up a little bit, so you can add some warmth to it.
So like shadows, you'll move to the warm side.
Well, if you look at your photo and it's looking kind of blue and kind of like meh, it's like doesn't even have like a dictionary. If you have photos that look kind of blah and they're kind of bluish, then you're going to want to warm it up a little bit.
Right.
And then as far as all the little filters go, those are great. I actually use in Photoshop something called actions. And actions are basically the same thing as filters that you see in Instagram. So I use it in my everyday editing, and I think it's really cool that people who aren't photographers can end up with artsy photos.
Yeah.
If you apply a filter to one of your images on Instagram, just make sure it doesn't look really blown out in the middle, or it just doesn't, if it looks weird, then it's probably not right. So you need to adjust, you can adjust now on Instagram, you can adjust the, you call it opacity of your filter, which means you have a filter at 100%, which is full on, or 0%, which means you can't see it at all. So you want to adjust that so that you can kind of see a healthy medium, a happy medium, so your image isn't like crazy. You've seen people's photos and they're like way over filtered. It's like, come on, that doesn't even look artsy. It just looks weird. You just have to kind of, what I always do. Here's a trick, okay? Take your phone, cross your eyes a little bit, just like this. And if it doesn't pop off the page to you, then you need to do some work to it. So I always, and I do that with any of my images. I shrink it down, across my eyes a little bit. Not a lot. You don't want to like throw.
Just make it blurry.
Just make it a little bit blurry and see. Do I see a lot of darks and lights? Do I see a lot of color? That's perfect. If it all looks like a big wash mess, then you may need to adjust some things. So anyway.
I see people who will use app after app. So they'll do it in an app to filter it. Then they'll go to another app and filter that. And they'll go to another app and filter it in there. And then they use the Instagram filter. So you really don't need all of that.
Right. No, that's exactly right. You don't always need all of that. There are times when I don't use any of that. I do love to post nice pictures on Instagram, and I do use the filters from time to time. I just don't want it to look overly filtered. I want it to look true to life. So anyway, these are good questions. Did anything else pop in your head? Did anybody have any other questions that you wanted to ask?
Ooh, I think I have one more.
Okay.
So like, you take really cool pictures of just things, not necessarily people, but like, you'll go around towns. Like we went to Newport and you took a picture of the Ferris wheel. How do you even have an eye for stuff like that? Is that like a creative mind type thing, or?
Well, actually, these are great questions. I hope people at home are also thinking these things. So I look for color a lot of times. My first indicator of a cool photo is color. The Ferris wheel in the picture has all these bright colored seats in it, and it looks so cool to me. Against that blue sky, it was a perfect shot to me. So if you're ever struggling with, I don't know if you've ever seen scenery pictures and they're just so boring.
Yeah.
Like a picture of a building, oh my gosh, it's the most boring picture ever. So I don't even care to take pictures of buildings per se. I look for things that are interesting. I look for texture. I look for color. I look for things that really stand out to me. If I saw it, I would want it hanging on my wall. That's kind of how I think. If it's a bright, I took a picture of a Volkswagen old VW van that was bright yellow just because color is awesome. Our eyes naturally are attracted to color. So if you are wanting to take cool pictures of anything, always look for color. That's the first way to know you're going to have a cool shot, is if you have bright colors. It doesn't always mean photos can't be cool if they don't have a lot of color, but that's where I always start.
Sweet.
Cool. All right, cool. Well, this was fun. We're gonna go and finish our vacation. We've got a big day planned. So anyway, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next week. Happy snapping. Bye. Everybody say bye. Bye.
Should it get down? Good Lord, baby got 'em open all over town. Stick to biz, don't play around. Cover my crowd.